Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Big League Breakdowns. This is episode number 15, and we are back once again for another week of baseball. Guys, we're a quarter away into the season at this point, I believe, or something of that level. So I don't think we can say it's early anymore, Will. That's just my opinion. But
Yes, we
hey,
can.
well, we certainly can. I said we can say that till the All-Star break. But regardless, we're here and we have some pretty simple, but pretty probably going to be pretty passionate talking points with this episode, as we're going to be talking about our teams. This episode, the Pirates calling up Paul Skenes, the Phillies, and their red hot start to the season, and what's going on with Baltimore and the closing situation there. But let's get right into this and start with Paul Skenes, who made his debut this past Saturday. Looked pretty good out there, honestly. Like, his numbers in the end don't tell the whole story because his bullpen screwed him over, but he looked really good. And I think my biggest takeaway from this game, honestly, is how full PNC Park was for the first time in a very long time. And I guess my first question to you, Will, is how good is a guy like Paul Skenes for the game of baseball?
I can say more for him being a good thing for the Pirates in the game of baseball. Feels like every year you get the top prospect in baseball and you're all about, ooh, who's the new pretty face of baseball going to be? How often has it been, at least since maybe Andrew McCutcheon coming up there, you can say, ooh, that person's a Pirate. And they didn't completely fall apart in their first outing.
Yeah, I mean, I think John had a prediction of what was your prediction that he was going to allow
Well,
how many
that
runs?
that
John,
was
are you
that was just to piss
John? Are
you
you
off.
okay?
I'm
Yeah.
dying. Tyler's ready to put this guy in the Hall of Fame.
No. Listen. I'm not, but I will say
You are.
you
He's
kind
good
of
for the game of baseball.
no.
For the game
Listen,
of baseball.
listen. When
You would say the same thing about Jackson Holiday.
yeah,
Back
if
off.
Jackson Holiday could hit his way out of a
Did
paper
I?
bag, you'd be saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Look, I remember in this spring training when Skeens faced off against Jackson Holiday, and it was obviously the spring training, but it was all over social media, and it kind of got a little bit viral. That's what I'm saying about he's good for the game of baseball. He is, obviously the number one draft pick for a reason. He's showed that in the AAA, a league right below the MLB, which obviously it's a little bit of a drop off of talent, but not as much as people think. I mean, he was killing it there, and I think you're looking at potentially the next really good pitcher in baseball, and I think that's exciting for not only the Pirates because, as you said, Will, like this is what we're looking for. We're looking for some juice, and this guy seems to be the most sure thing that we've had, honestly, in a while. And it's just good for the game of baseball. Again, it's a lot of eyes, and not to mention, like, I know people aren't going to love this, but him dating Livy Dunn, like a lot of people are comparing it to like and I don't think it's on the same scale, obviously, but Travis Kelsey and T Swift, like, does baseball have its own thing there? Like, I know it's getting blown out of
No.
proportion a little bit, but in my opinion, if he continues to deal like he is and make it exciting, I mean, I think the Pirates, for a lot of neutral fans, and you guys can disagree, I think there is a little bit of excitement there, at least to start the year, usually, like this year, because there is potential there. And now you're seeing a guy like that who like is really could really exceed. And I think, again, it's just good for them. But John, I'm sure you have a rebuttal to this, so why don't you tell me about it?
My rebuttal is calm down. He had an average start. Okay, it was his first start. Let's get him through a season before we put him in the Hall of Fame. Okay, that's my rebuttal. Just calm down a little bit. hold
No,
hold the
I
horses.
am not. All I'm saying is you
I
look at the stuff he
understand the
has.
Pirates suck. I
If you have
understand.
if you have a guy that, and Will, I already know what your rebuttal for this is going to be. If you have a guy that consistently is throwing over 100, where his average fastball is over 100, and he's got nasty off speed stuff too, like, look, I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but I think there's a pretty good chance he's going to turn out to be at least decent to very good quality starter in the league. Hopefully that maintains. Look, he's also only 21 too, which, I mean, this guy's going to grow. He's going to get stronger, and it's just very exciting for the Pirates, who had a really nice start to the year. We're not accustomed to this. This has kind of been a theme and started to fall off, and now we're kind of hovering around 500. But you know, again, I just think it gives Pirates fans something. And I actually didn't check the attendance for that game, but it had to be more, you know, more than usual. But I mean, come on, literally, you guys tuned into the game to watch this. Like, it's a big thing. I'm sure a lot of people tuned in to watch this guy
I mean,
pitch for the first time.
I tuned in because it was Saturday afternoon. There wasn't many other games on. So, if I'm being honest, it was in the 4 o'clock time
Walks with
slot.
the bases loaded.
Yeah.
Yeah, but look, I mean,
Tyler, I will
the
tell you
Pirates.
this: as soon as he left the game, I turned it off. I will
Oh,
say that.
I'm sure a lot of people did, but you know, and thank God for. I mean, that was one of the craziest games that it ended up being. But yeah, we'll get into all that with the Pirates. But I just think you know he's going to be something special. I do believe, and it was good to see him really dominate. I mean, dude, Seiya Suzuki went up there, who's been one of the better hitters in the league this year, and he made him legitimately look silly in his at bats. And I know you know teams are going to start getting tape on him, whatever the case may be, but. I think this the way his stuff is so good at this age, I think it's undeniable that he has the potential to at least turn out to be a really good
You're right.
starter. But
Potential.
I mean,
He
dude,
has potential. Yeah.
oh yeah,
But
but I mean, there's a lot of people like, oh, Strasburg debut, blah blah blah, this and that, and you know, I don't want to put that
No, he
pressure
is
on him,
probably
but
the most
no.
hyped debut of this year for a pitching
yeah,
prospect. I think that's without a doubt. And to answer your question earlier, it was 34,924 in attendance at that game.
yeah, that's a lot more than
It's a shame you
usual.
couldn't pull in 40.
Before they had 3.
No,
Yeah. But I mean, Will, you said like, oh, the biggest debut this season. I mean, would you argue that he has been the biggest debut since Strasburg? Because you're having the starting pitcher who's come up really early, you know, number one overall pick. Like, I don't think this is bias on my part. Like, I don't know if I've seen a more hyped pitcher for a debut in the last 14 years it's been
for
since
a
Strasburg.
pitching prospect, and I'm saying pitching prospect because I can easily see arguments being made for Yamamoto's debut in Korea this year. But from a pitching prospect, draftee standpoint, number one overall pick, I'd say that's probably a fair statement to say that he's the most hyped pitching prospect since Strasburg. John can fight me on whether he thinks this is more hyped of a start than Jackson Holiday's, but I at least think that Paul Skenes means more to the future of or to the future of the Pirates than Holiday to the future of the Orioles, only because the Orioles have so much depth already and young talent that Holiday would just, when he finds it, is just going to be another piece of the puzzle. Whereas Skenes could be to the Pirates
The
their,
future.
let's say
Yeah.
Adley Rushman, the guy that kind of kickstarts the future.
Yeah. He could be the franchise.
I think that's a fair point because you're right. Like, I mean, Holiday came up and he was raking in AAA. I understand that, but you know, it didn't work out. Did our camera op like fall asleep at the
I was
wheel?
going to say, Bobby just loves my face right
There
now.
we go.
He wants that reaction
I'm gonna
shot.
start dancing in a minute.
I was
to make something entertaining.
trying to find something and I was locked in and could not find it, so never mind.
Okay, well that's okay. But yeah, I think
Man
you
needs
do
a
bring up
TD
a good
assist.
point. You do bring up a good point of, hey, I mean, I think he does mean more to the Pirates than Holiday to the Orioles. And I'm to be honest, I think hype wise, I think they were about the same, to be honest, like with Holiday and Skeens, but it was just so weird for Holiday because he, you know, really didn't perform, right? And I think like it started to go from a lot of hype to a lot of hate really quickly. Skeens come in, and again, it wasn't this outstanding performance or whatever on Saturday, but I think it was good. And just the way he was making pitches, the pitches he was throwing, obviously being able to throw the ball that hard, and you know, he throws a 95 mile per hour, what he's calling, and I think this has kind of been thrown around now, but a splinker with like a splitter sinker action. Like, he's got nasty
People need
stuff.
to quit it
and
with these dumb freaking
sprinkler?
I
names.
knew you were gonna say
Sprinkler. Okay.
splinker. I knew Will was gonna have a problem with that, but
I already
yeah,
have a problem with
regardless.
the sweeper. You want to call it a splinker?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
they're
I'm
all
just saying
good picks.
it's nasty stuff. So it's
Sounds like
good
a
to see
toy
that.
that's about to get released in the 90s. Two for whammo! It's the
A-
sprinkler.
And you can also fault the fault the Pirates bullpen for the numbers not looking as good as they could possibly be. I mean, he ends up giving 3 up earned runs, but
Yeah,
really
but
it felt like one.
4 innings pitched, 2 walks, 1 home run,
Well, they were
three
limiting
earned
his,
runs, and six
but
hits. I mean, the 6 hits is rather impressive for a debut for a pitcher. But I would love to see the walks
yeah.
chill out a little bit there.
And watching
Because
that game, I think he was nervous. Like there was definitely nerves there because there was a lot of pitches. Like
Duh.
he
you
was.
think you're
Oh
just
yeah,
standing in the
no,
middle of a baseball stadium where everybody's
It was the
judging
that
you.
biggest
ha-
turnout in our stadium in years. No
uh,
pressure at all, but it's all
Yeah.
about whether you do
Hey,
well
hey,
or not.
listen. All right, Paul, there are 30,000 people out there, okay? We had 3 last night, okay? They're here to see you, buddy. You.
yeah. I'm actually gonna look this up when somebody else is talking, like the records for attendance in the last like decade, because it's got to be crazy. But
Well,
yeah,
you
I mean
did make the
he
playoffs in the
yeah,
decade.
well that was a decade ago though. So
You're
I
looking
you
feel
up.
know
like you for a record sellout at PNC would easily eclipse 40. I feel
I
like
just
any
want to see
ballpark that
like
has a max out under 40 is kind of sad.
I want to see
AKA
post
Tampa.
playoffs. I want to see post playoffs what the record is. But regardless, again, he was spiking some balls that he probably shouldn't have because of nerves. And then, like I said, I mean, he lets up the 1 earned run and he leaves 2 runners on. And I don't think you can expect your bullpen to walk 15 guys in a row or whatever the case was. Like
No, you shouldn't
so,
expect that. So
I
that is
think
fair
his
to him.
numbers are. I think his numbers are a little inflated. Again, I'm not going to go out there and say this was like a great debut. Blah blah blah. It was a good debut, and it's something to build on. And I think he's scheduled to pitch. I think again against the Cubs, but in Wrigley later this week. So it'll be interesting. But let's get into the
He's going to
bigger
get
picture.
How
smacked.
many days is that between starts? How many days off did you have
Well,
this week?
the Pirates are running with a 6-man rotation right now.
Okay.
So he'll probably start on Thursday, right? Or Friday, one of those days. But yeah, let's get into the bigger picture with the Pirates because I think we kind of and a lot of the baseball community has gotten on them for once again having a really strong start to the year, and now they're falling off and losing, getting swept by the A's, losing series to the Angels, and all this. And there's a pretty big problem here. From a non-Pirates fan perspective, Will, what has kind of been the issue here for the Pirates?
They couldn't hit the broadside of a barn even if you paid them.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's their offense.
Oh.
Their pitching is not that bad, honestly, even with Bednar's crap in the back end of the bullpen. It's really that the offense over the last 2-3 weeks maybe has been horrific. And I think you pointed it out to us when the Pirates are facing the Rockies. They scored something like 5-7 runs over a 3-game series against the worst pitching
Yes.
staff in baseball. And it really has not. That poor play has followed them onward, and it just. I mean, I think recently they've had some high scoring games, so that's hopefully a good sign to get out of it. And they're still hovering only a couple games under the 500 mark. But yeah, they fell from stardom fast.
Yeah, and as you said, it's really been the headache. The funny thing about this team is, I think like you can look back at the our preseason episode, and I and I think I literally said verbatim, the bullpen will definitely not be a problem. It'll probably be the strongest part of their team. I think their hitting is sneaky good, and the biggest thing that I thought was going to be a problem for them was their starting pitching, and their starting pitching has been the best, and their bullpen has arguably been the worst. So like it's been really really strange. And as I said, like they're running with a 6-man rotation now with Skenes in there, but like Marco Gonzalez, who's been out since the Phillies series in April, and he's not expected back till mid-June. Like he was so good, and that was a huge question mark. Bailey Falter, I absolutely was hating on him after his first performance in Miami, where he gave up 5 runs before he got an out. But he's been solid this year. And Quinn Priester, it's tough. It's tough because I think they think he has potential still. Obviously, he's been a guy that they've been talking about for a while. He hasn't looked great, but I think they're trying to get him major league starts. So, the starting pitching is not the problem. It is the hitting, and they're just. It's not like, oh, they can't hit home runs. Well, it's like, no, they just can't hit. Like, they're getting 2-3 hit by the A's, Angels, and Rockies. So yeah, John, what is your?
It's all around a problem. Looking at your where you're ranking in the National League in terms of the Pirates, you're 12th in hits, 9th in doubles, 14th in triples, and 11th in home runs. And then in total at bats, you're ranked 7th. So that's not very good in terms of offense. In terms of your pitching, you're ranked in the top in terms of most of these statistics, at least top 10 throughout all of them. Your ERA is 7, complete games 1, saves 5, hits and earn runs against is 7th. So it's like you've
So you're mid.
Yeah, but they're better than their offense. They should be a better team than what they are. If your offense could hit the figure it out button, you might be able to win some games here. I mean, I'm looking at
No, let's compare 2 teams, for example, though, when you say that. We were talking about the Astros ahead of time, and the Astros now lead the American League as an average, but they also are like last in the American League or bottom 2 in ERA. So I'd say, given how bad the Pirates' offense has been, you could say they could be what the Astros are, but they're not. They're only about 3, maybe 4 games under 500, where the Astros are like 10 games. So I'd say they're doing a little better than you would expect.
You also have to factor in strength of schedule here as well. The Astros, to their credit, have had a bit of a tougher schedule to start off the season.
When your team sucks, everyone's better than you.
Yeah, sure.
And for the record, the Pirates' losses, a big chunk of those losses are Rockies, Angels, and A's.
Yeah, and that's what I'm that's what I'm saying to their thing. I mean, with the Rockies, like
that's what I was saying.
Yeah. Right now, Connor Joe is leading them in average, and he's a good player, I guess, but that's not the guy you want. O'Neal Cruz, to his credit, has actually bounced back in the last 2 weeks because he was really struggling, but his pop is back. Ryan Reynolds is starting to find it a little bit. Hayes has been hurt, but Jack Sawinski, I thought this was going to be a guy for them this year that was going to take another step because I think he's been underrated for a very long time, but he's really struggled this year. I think maybe the biggest one, Henry Davis, getting sent down earlier this season because he couldn't hit the ball. That was a spot where they were kind of relying on him to be the guy because Andy Rodriguez is out for the year. So they're like, all right, he'll be the guy. But now you got to bring in Yasmani Grandal, who is obviously not the same player he was. Joey Bart has been a nice pickup, but he just shows signs of brilliance, and then other times he's horrible. So I think that there, and then Rowdy Tellez has not been good this year either. So a lot of these positions where you are looking for a guy to break out, to say, all right, we need to help these top 3 guys in the lineup, and Cruz and Reynolds and Hayes, it's just not really happening, and I think it's extremely hurting them. You had a little bit of that at the start of the year, but it's just not coming to fruition now. So
you have too many guys batting below 240 in your lineup to be consistent in terms of your runs scored and your offense production. I should say at least consistent in a good way.
And like I said, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're consistent. Just
and once again, I know we bring this up all the time, but the timely hitting has been a lot of the issue too. I'll be watching games, and it's like, all right, we got first and second, no outs, and then we'll manage to not score runs in that inning a lot of the times, and it's just, again, I think you're getting production from a couple of guys, and you might get production from 2 or 3 guys a night, but everybody else is just absolutely horrid. It's just, it's very hard for them right now. And then Will on the back end, you mentioned like David Bednar. He's been I have a lot less faith in that man than I had before, and he was really our best player for the last few years. Like, what the hell is going on with him? Aroldis Chapman as well. Like, he had a great start to the year. Now he can't pitch. Like, what is happening with that bullpen?
I don't think Bednar's quite as bad as he was before. I was looking at his stats just now for his last 7 games, and he's got his ERA at 3.86 with 4 saves. And Chapman is again a little better than what his actual ERA is at 4.05. Bednar just seemed like he had a thing of the yips, honestly. I mean, I remember Brad Lidge having a certain situation throughout an entire season in 2009 after his brilliance in 2008, and he had an ERA of like 7.5 that season. Bednar's too good to have that last an entire season, and he's showing signs of getting out of it. You mentioned though before the season started, though, what was it? Moretta, I believe was
Yep.
hurt like before the season started, and he was one of your back end guys. And Chapman, well, I think we all can say Chapman is either the best relief pitcher in baseball, or he's trying to see how hard he can hit the net. Fortunately,
Yeah,
for a while, you were having the Chapman that was hitting the net. I have faith, especially in Bednar coming out of it and helping the back end of the bullpen. But I mean, you kind of just gotta test your matchups and see where each pitcher can pitch.
it just sucks though because I mean, I'm telling you, man, like the first couple series of the year, I'm like, oh, we got like Chapman, like he should go in the closing role over Bednar right now. He was so good, and he's just been really, really, really bad. Like I feels like every time he comes in now, he's giving up runs. Josh Fleming, who looked good at the beginning of the season for them, just got DFA'd after 2 back-to-back horrible performances. So again, the spot on their team that I thought they were going to have the most stability actually ends up being the part of their team that right now is going through the most change. And look, again, there's been surprises with the starting pitching. Jared Jones has been really, really good this year, and that's a potential another potential guy down the line that can be a good starting pitcher for them. Skenes, obviously. But again, they got to really figure it out on the back end because Bednar comes in now, and for the last 2 seasons, like this is automatic. Like he might have like 1 or 2, 3 bad performances the whole season, but usually it was like lights out, like nothing happened. And this year it is very, very far from it. So I'd like to see him turn it around, but yeah, I mean, look, as a Pirates fan, I do have hope in Skenes. I have hope in Jared Jones to potentially be guys in the future for us and really put us on the map. But I mean, the hitting has turned around. Like I feel like the amount of prospects that we've gone through that uh, in the positional players, where it's just like, oh, this is going to be the guy. This isn't the guy. This is going to be the guy, and like it is just very worrisome in that point. But if you guys have nothing else to add on the Pirates, we can move on. So this is your last time to say anything. But Will looks ready for the Phillies, who are the best team in baseball after 43 games or whatever it is. Will, instant reaction to how the season has gone so far for the Phillies.
Oh wait, but to go back to the Pirates real quick. No, I'm kidding.
Shut
I'm
up.
kidding.
I hate you so much.
I could go back, but I'm not because Phillies are the best team in baseball. I'm going to make sure you guys don't forget that, especially John, because the MLB.com has decided to favor the Orioles over the Phillies in the power rankings, and I call BS on that.
I think that it
But,
had to do with schedule.
whatever.
I don't know.
I
was
think it
trying to
has to
figure
do
out
with
these things.
BS, but you can shut it because it's not your turn to talk. All right.
Okay. Let's see how it is.
All right. So my big
So
thing
anyway,
with the Phillies is exactly what we thought the Phillies could do over the last 2 seasons to start the year. Fortunately, has not been the case. What I like the most right now with the Phillies is everyone is piecing in at different points, though. We're not having necessarily games where we're having constant 10, 15 run blowouts and then maybe another game where you score 1 or 2 runs. we're having fairly consistent 5+ run outings. Some nights it's the top of the order. A lot of nights recently it's been the bottom of the order, especially with Schwarber out a couple games. Today was his first game back. Real Muta's been out a couple games. Turner's been injured now for a little over a week with his hamstring injury and won't be back for probably another 5 weeks. So to see people like Edmundo Sosa step up for the Phillies, Johan Rojas has gotten better. His average is pushing 230 now, and it was like 150, well below the Mendoza line for a lot of April. Cody Clemens has been a nice call up for the Phillies, surprisingly. So seeing the offense thrive day in and day out, I feel great. And then having the pitching constantly be as effective as it is, especially the starting rotation, like this is everything I could have dreamed of to start the season. I'm not going to say my concerns about the postseason because I'm just going to enjoy the ride right now. But this team is fully set, it looks like, to give the Braves a run for their money for the division.
Well, I think, people keep saying, oh, what are the Phillies going to do with their rotation, this and that. It's like, dude, it's a good problem to have 6 really good starters. Like, did you think you're going to get the production from Spencer Turnbull that you're getting? No. But it's been very surprising. He's been really good. Excuse me. Since Taijuan Walker's come back, he's been good. So, and then obviously you have Wheeler and Nola there, and then Ranger Suarez is arguably
and then the best pitcher in baseball,
yeah,
Ranger
I was gonna say,
Suarez.
You're front runner right now for the Cy Young. Like, I mean, you're just getting it from a lot of different scenarios right now for them. But yeah, as you said, I mean, it's not just one guy that they're relying on. They can go out there every night. And kind of the flip side of what I'm talking about with the Pirates, like on any given night, somebody can go out there and be, the playmaker for them. Bryson Stott's been really good recently too. So, yeah, a lot there. But John, what is your perspective on the Phillies so far?
It's early. No. In all seriousness, it's very impressive what they're doing, and what they're doing is being consistent. They're in the top 5 across the National League, which is where they need to be in all the categories they need to be. They're in the bottom half in the categories they need to be in the bottom half. And then just their pitching has been lights out in terms of complete games. They're number 1 in terms of shutouts.
Another one today, baby.
Yeah, another one today. In terms of wins, they are number 1.
Muck the Fets.
In terms of ERA, they're number 2. It's all around impressive. Ranger Suarez has been, I don't know what Mike's secret stuff he's been taking before every single game, but this guy, he's just been lights out. He has a chance to go 9 innings of shutout baseball every time he takes the mound, and that's fantastic. So you have the potential here for a 3-headed dragon of Ranger Suarez, Zach Wheeler, and Aaron Nola. 1, 2, and 3, you're not really gonna score against those guys. Good luck. So yeah, for it being May, them being the number 1 team in baseball, good for you guys. Good job.
Right,
Yeah, you're hitting your potential. Good job.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate now, because I want to stir the pot. So yes,
were you hoping I would?
They started off the season so well, and this and that, and it's a nice, refreshing start for them after all the years that they haven't started well. This should be expected. We got to stop. They have the 4th highest payroll in the MLB. They have superstars, this and that. Why are we stroking their ego over this when this should have been done 4 years ago?
Why are you not stroking their ego? I mean, that's the thing. The Braves and the Dodgers have been doing stuff like this constantly, and everyone's always pampering them. If anything, it's taken up until the beginning of May for people to finally accept, okay, the Phillies deserve the same type of pampering that the Dodgers and Braves get year-round. Phillies have always been pushed aside as, they falter.
how many times on this show and every other like baseball show that exists is always like the Dodgers, who you expected to be the best team in the league, be the best team in the league, and they're like, oh yeah, they're just so good. Oh my God, yes, Dodgers, you're doing so good. Like, why? Of course we should be doing this with the Phillies. This is what everyone expected to be, and they're living up to expectations,
No,
and they're
but that's
above
the
the
thing.
Braves.
No, that's the thing. So they've
Yeah,
been
I picked
so
them to
bad.
be one in the NL East. I'm just
If
saying.
they're gonna shirk their ego this year, which is fine, they're the best team in baseball. I understand that, but there has to be more of a precedent of like, look how bad they were the previous years, because nobody. I mean, not that nobody expected this, right? Because they are a good team, but like there was questions about this team still coming in, and you look at that team, and again, how much they're paying players and the players they have, and it's like, I feel like it's blown out of proportion with them right now. Like everybody's like, "Oh, best team in baseball," blah blah. And it's like, yeah, they should be. Like they should. They're paying their players like they should be. Why are we
Yeah,
surprised by this?
then call it like it is. That's what
We're
we're
not
doing. Then we're just calling it
surprised,
like
but
it
we're gonna
is.
celebrate it.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I was
we're gonna call
because
it as it is.
this time last year, and remember, there has not been a ton of change between last year and this year in terms of the roster, especially in the starting. We had a couple extra pickups, a little bit of change in the pitching rotation for sure, but not a lot has changed. You know where we were this time last year? Not great at all. We had a rough go at it last year. So now that we're finally living up to expectation this early, instead of having to fight for a wild card spot and then make the run, it's great that we're starting it now so that hopefully we can be this consistent throughout the rest of the season.
no, that's what I'm saying though. It's like, why are we? This should be the expectation for you guys. It's not. It shouldn't
Well, what
be.
you're
Oh well.
asking is a question for the Phillies of the last 2 years, though. What you're doing is complaining about the past and saying that
No.
now they're performing well. That's exactly what's going on. We're just
I agree, but it's like, why is the expectation? Why hasn't the expectation been this every year? Why hasn't the
it
expectation?
has been. They just haven't lived up to it. So then the
We
headlines
should be.
change.
We should be a top 3 team in baseball. Blah blah blah. This and that. Like, what was like the high watermark last year for their like worst record? Like, weren't they like 15 games under at some point or something? Like, I don't know if you
I don't
remember
think
well off
quite
the top of
that
your
bad,
head.
but they probably were more than 10 games under 500 before the end of May. That's about the only thing I can think of for sure. I think
And look,
2 years ago was the one where I think they were potentially 14 games under.
I'll give them credit in the front office of like, hey, at least they didn't blow it up. But you got the most pixelated friggin' picture. Good for you.
What a baby!
You got
I think I used the
Suarez,
same picture
shut up.
earlier.
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it kind of pisses me off a little bit to the extent of like, oh, look at the Phillies. Like, dude, you literally pay your players $250 million per season. Yes, you should be good. Like, that's all I'm saying, man.
All right, so you're getting
congrats.
mad the same way you get mad that you hear the Dodgers and the Braves all the time.
Yes. Well, I get mad in the fact that, like, why, these teams that are paying their players absurd amounts of money, and this is a whole nother topic, I guess, which we'll probably get to at some point down the line. But it's like, baseball not having a salary cap pisses me the hell off, because you can have teams that go out and spend, and look, they're all successful,
That's
and the
you
Phillies
saying
are
that
fine.
as a small team.
I was gonna say
No,
this sounds
that's
like a
not
salty
that.
pirate.
No, I'm
fan
with him on
complaining
this.
right now.
I'm with him on this.
This is absolutely. I've had this gripe about baseball for a long time, and why I kind of hated it for a while is because, like, dude, I mean, we already talked about it, right? The Dodgers went out and spent every single penny that they had, and then some, to make the team that they have. And I know the Phillies aren't on the same line as them with that, but they also are. Again, they have the 4th highest payroll in the league. Like, this is expected. Like, I don't know. I just pisses me
I
off.
would.
Right, it's expected.
So-
they're performing well, good for them,
we're
but
comparing it to the last 2 seasons. That is absolutely why the celebration is higher. This was not the case for the Phillies the past 2 seasons. They didn't hit their run until late. So it is very, very, very good and a great sign of things to come if they're starting this early. That's what it is.
I will
No,
slightly
again, I
switch the
agree.
topic quickly to what you were saying, Tyler, pertaining to the salary cap, because I'm actually not against that at all. No, it's never gonna happen. I'm fine if there was a salary cap done to make things more competitive between teams. because of how drastic of a change there's been. And I know John and I have talked about this for years about what baseball can do. That being said, you also got to think about it this way about big picture. You mentioned the Dodgers, you mentioned the Phillies. Those two teams combined over the last 10 years, how many World Series have they won?
This is you're going into my point though. Like I'm
but
saying,
that's so
if we're
what
gonna,
I'm getting at is you're complaining right now because they're stroking the Phillies' ego because they're performing well. Great, cool. They should. They're going to stroke the ego of whoever is doing really well in baseball. It just tends to be the Dodgers and the Braves. Now the Phillies are finally living up to it the year, so they're going to do it. And as not being the common popular team, you hate hearing the same teams over and over and over again. And I'm going to enjoy the moment being a Phillies fan. However, it doesn't mean anything in the end because if the Pirates all of a sudden were to slip into the postseason and make the World Series, everything would change. And then
it's
you would
not
get
even
the Pirates in
media
the
attention
postseason
though.
talking about
It's honestly more about me having a gripe with teams being able to spend an unlimited amount of money, which the Phillies have in a sense, and they're not living up to these expectations. And again, the one time in the last 3-4 years that they've kind of rebuilt stuff and this and that, it's like, look at them now, look how good they are. It's like, dude, you should have been this good. You should have been this good.
They've always.
But again, you're talking about the
they,
past. You're not. You're
yeah,
but
they've always been.
No.
They've always been predicted though. The ranking that the Phillies got preseason is not new. What is new is them living up to expectation. That is a Philly sports thing.
I know.
That is just what always happened. That's the story. That's why people are stroking the ego. Not because they did live up to the expectation that was set by media, experts, etc., but because they actually followed through with it, and they followed through with it early. That's the story.
But I think, okay, here's a comparison that I can make then. So maybe it's more that I'm mad about the shit that they haven't got the last couple of years because it's like, oh, well, they can't compete with the Braves. It's the Braves, blah, 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 this and that.
But
it's
they did.
But they're spending the same amount of money as the Braves. They're spending it all on these players.
We're spending more.
So, when it's like, oh, man, well, we only had X amount of wins and we couldn't win the division because of the Braves, this and that. It's like, bro, that's not okay. After all these years, and I'm happy for them. Great that they're doing so good now. Let's see if they can keep it up the rest of the year. But it's just the fact of, if you're gonna give them their flowers this year, you have to look back and really say, no, this was not acceptable from them for the last couple of years. They needed to get their shit together. Thankfully, they have, but whatever. It's a gripe that I have.
That was the headline for 2 months. If you don't think that wasn't said at all, you weren't paying attention to Phillies baseball the last 2 years for the first 2 months.
There's an expectation that they should be a playoff team. I understand that. But there's this whole thing of oh, well, they got to get past the Braves. Or they got to do this or that. It's about the Braves. It's the Braves division, this and that. And it's they should be, in my opinion, a lot closer competing-wise with them. I know last year they had, 94 wins or whatever it was. But, it should be neck and neck the whole way. It shouldn't be they're chasing the Braves for, they're 10 back of the Braves for the whole entire season. No,
we already had this conversation. We've already had this. They did it, but they did it.
All right. Well,
we've had that in the past.
Let's shift our focus.
I want John to speak.
If we are done yelling at one another, I would like to weigh in.
No, I'm done yelling at Tyler. Me and Bobby are feeling good about ourselves,
as you should right now. I think Tyler. I think you're 100% right in the sense of this is where they should be. However, Bobby and Will are right in the sense of you're talking about the past, that they should have been living up to these expectations, but they didn't. And they didn't. And we know that they didn't, but this year they are. In terms of the Braves and the Dodgers, we were giving them their flowers and everything. We were saying, we even said at the beginning of this season, we're not even going to say that the Dodgers aren't going to win the NL West because we know they are. On paper, they're the best team in baseball. And that's why we said on paper, they're the best team in baseball. Fact of the matter is, the Phillies said, nope, this ain't paper. And they are taking that title and they are running with it right now. you don't win the World Series in May, but you can lose it in May, and clearly the Phillies are not in the business of losing it in May this year. You got to
I was already
give
planning
them.
the parade
Hold on,
personally.
hold on. All right, fair enough. You gotta give them credit for finally living up to expectations and finally doing it. Now, in terms of small market teams, my fellow small market team member, yeah,
Hey,
it's rather annoying. It is annoying when you have these big market teams that can you know suddenly spend $300 million and not blink. It's annoying. Meanwhile, we're feasting off of table scraps. It feels like. So yeah, there is that, but that's the nature of the game, unfortunately. And the Phillies changed their business model to make themselves a big market team. Excuse me. To my understanding, with their TV deal. Am I correct in saying that, boys?
We had a TV
yes,
deal
the
around
wrong person.
2016, I think, or something that is probably what really
But you were
expanded
mid
the
market.
table.
Yeah, you were mid market before then, right?
Yeah, I mean, when we won the World Series in '08, we weren't that big. I think our most
Yeah.
expensive player when we won the World Series was only like 14 million.
Yeah. So
Yeah, different time.
as a small market member of this podcast, it is rather annoying when you have the Dodgers, Yankees, Braves, Phillies, Red Sox, etc., just dropping 400, 500, 600, 700, $800 million, $1 billion on their team and getting all these stars, and you're left with nothing. So
It-
it is frustrating in that sense. But yeah, the Phillies are what they should be. They are where they should be. They can celebrate for now, but we'll see how things go in October. I'll leave it at
I
that.
love, by the
Agreed.
way, the hearing two guys who are fans of small market teams talk, because we have one small market team that actually has a chance and is competing, and they're mad at the big market teams, and then we have the other small market team who is just mad that they're small market in general and then wants their owner to
I'm
do
not-
something to make them big market.
That's a different story though, because yes, he needs to do more. I'm not even talking about really. The more I think about it, I just think I hate the fucking egotistical Philly fans. Not only for Phillies, but for Eagles.
Oh
Dude, I swear
my
to God,
God,
like,
get
are
a
we
gonna
grip,
have this
dude!
He's
conversation
talking the
Come
wrong
on.
bear.
because
I
it's
think
like,
the real story
oh,
is don't be a Pirates fan in
We-
Philly country.
God, you
You know,
throw batteries
Tyler
one
picks
time
Betsy.
and it's a big
No,
issue and no one
it's
can
like,
let it
dude,
go, and
I bring
everyone
this
thinks
up-
Philly fans are these terrible people. Meanwhile, everybody else is doing it. You see what's happening in Boston right now with the NHL? Like, what?
no, this is
Wow,
it, because
he got so
say
heated
this-
he cut himself off.
I say this all the time. There was a while back when the Eagles were not who they are now. They would be like they'd win the first two games of the season
We're
against
talking
the
about
fucking
Eagles.
No, listen. This goes to my point.
This is
They'd
a
win the
baseball
first
podcast.
They'd win the first two games of the
Thank
season
you.
against absolute scrubs, right? And you'd go on to the everything after, like social media and all this, and it was like, we're going to the Super Bowl, blah blah blah, this and that. Dude, it's the same thing with the Phillies. Like, they're finally good for once, and everybody's like all over them. That's my
Hold
point,
on, this
all right?
is very different. I think they are.
I have a lot.
They are.
Do you
beating-
not know
I think
what
I
being
also
a
went
to
fan
the World
is?
Series
Like,
2
what
years
the
ago,
hell are you
and we're
talking
in the
about?
championship.
I think I have a
Actually,
lot of pent-up
Bobby, to be fair,
rage.
I think as a Pirates fan, he does understand that. He
No,
does get
no,
that
because
perspective.
brother, this is
He
no.
knows
This
he
is the
knows
guy
the
who is
wheels
in
are
charge
going to
of
fall off.
planning the show.
knows
This is the
that.
guy who's in charge of planning the show. What was the first topic of the show today?
No, that
What was the
Will.
first topic?
That was Will today. Defend me.
You would have put it in here
No,
regardless.
I wouldn't have. I put the best for last, not first, if I had a choice.
Right. But look, I think you just have to have perspective as a fan, and Philly fans lack that, okay?
I disagree. I think that this is
You,
their perspective.
holy,
They're the
I
best
am
team
begging
in
you to get a
baseball.
grip.
I think
Not-
Tyler
Oh
is
my God.
slowly dropping.
This narrative,
like,
this
credibility
narrative
the
is
more
just
he
so
says.
stupid.
No, that dude,
Yeah.
I
They're the
really just It's really
They
Eagles
are-
fans more than Phillies fans, but yeah.
They are
Brother,
where they should
I
be.
Shooting
implore
himself in
you.
the foot the more he speaks.
Bro, I implore you to go watch that Urinate Tree video talking about the Pirates fan base. You want to see how bad it really is? You should know, but apparently you don't. So I encourage
But
you to
they
go
have
educate yourself on the
perspective.
team
They
you say
have
you're a fan of.
I don't think you do have perspective.
I apparently
I
calling
do.
Paul
You do.
Skenes
I
a
don't
Hall
think
of
so
Famer.
either.
You don't. You have the perspective of a jaded baseball fan
No.
who has been shit on for the long time, and we have the Phillies and the Orioles on this podcast of who we are fans of that are doing well, and have done well in the past decade.
Wait,
The Pirates have
wait,
not.
hold on. There is no chance I'm hearing a guy who's a fan of the Orioles talk down to another small market team like he's doing right now, just
We're
because
supposed to be
they found a
fans and
little bit of
brothers.
success. That is
Hold on a
wild.
minute.
There's no way I just heard that.
Hold on a minute. I am putting this in perspective as a fellow small market
Man,
team.
it's okay that you didn't win. Maybe you'll win next time, like we did the past 2 years. That's crazy, dude.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Dude, the small market teams are battling each other. How do you small market teams have to unionize? Stop fighting with each other. Go after the big market teams together, and maybe you'll have a chance.
You know what,
Just become
Tyler?
weird.
I'm
God,
on
the
your side
Civil
again.
War happening on the BLB podcast. Damn.
I'm on your side again.
Yeah, this is absolutely crazy. All right, let's shift our focus over to the Braves though quickly, because the Braves they've been fine, but they're not leading the division, so it's a whole thing for them because whatever, I'm over it. The Braves are not where they want to be because they're below the Phillies. Will, I'm going to ask you straight up: by the end of the year, are the Phillies winning this division as of right now, or is it still the Braves? And who is beating their mic?
I'm Bobby. What are you doing? What are you doing over there?
Yes.
It's
The
not
Phillies will
me.
be
My
up by
mic is muted.
Phillies will be
It's
up
one
by
of
a
you
couple games
guys.
where it is now.
Phillies over. How about you, John? Phillies over the Braves by the end of the year.
I picked them from the start to be over the Braves. So
No,
I had
I think
2 games the other way, but right now, given the Phillies look and the Braves having some injuries and / underperforming from their top players,
Yeah.
they'll right the ship. But the Phillies, I think, right now are going to hold steady and still be up by a couple games. But hey,
But
this might
doesn't
be what
that
the Braves
scare
need.
you? But doesn't that scare you though for the Braves because they have struggled and they're still where they're at? Like Acuna hasn't been the player he's going to turn it around. You can't tell me otherwise. He's going to.
all right. Hold on a minute. I want to point this out.
Now Tyler's right. Move on.
No, I just want to point this out because it baffles me. Baseball Reference has the Braves making the playoffs 99.5%. What is the Phillies? 98.1%. How were they? I don't understand. How
Future schedule, most likely.
I guess, but still, you got to factor these things in of the Phillies being the best team in baseball right now.
But still, in defense of the Braves, it's still only a 2.5 game difference. It's easy if there was a series up ahead where the Phillies got swept and the Braves swept that things would flip. I mean, it's just going to be like that the entire season.
But that's what I'm saying, though. Like, as a Phillies fan, doesn't that scare you a little bit? Because you're arguably playing the best baseball that you have. The Braves are not playing great baseball, and they're still 25-13 and 2.5 games back. Like, that's my point.
So this is what I'll say really quick. Well, so here's what for the Phillies. What I like right now is I can think of maybe 3 or 4 guys that I'd say are very overperforming right now. For the most part, a lot of the team is actually at par of what we expected. If anything, some are worse. And so to know that the team is performing about where I'd expect them when I look at their individual stats and they're getting these results, I feel great. As for the Braves, I do fully believe their offense is going to flip the script. Riley, Olsen, Acuna are all going to do what they've done in the past just because their track records are too good not for that to happen. I do have questions that the starting rotation will be able to kind of hold out its success that it's done, but I see the Braves' strength is right now. Their offense is good, but their starting pitching is really, really good. So maybe later in the season that might flip a little bit where the starting pitching slacks a bit, but then the offense picks it up. And so that's where the Braves have that kind of piggyback right now to help save them. If they can truly get both to connect, especially around postseason baseball, then yes, that's terrifying because they don't have Spencer Strider and they're still putting up numbers like they have in the past. But the Phillies right now seem very solid all around with what they are, with even a couple players that could do better. And so therefore I feel confident that they can strive forward, barring any major injuries, in addition to what they already have.
Well, I do agree in the sense that I think if you're looking at something to maybe regress for the Braves, it would be the starting pitching. But like I said, I mean, you kind of look at their batting numbers, and it's like, you know, these aren't going to stay this way. Acuna's
Yeah.
been very average this year. He's only got 3 home runs, and like we didn't expect that. Marcell Ozuna, like, I mean, he's been really carrying that team. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I just feel like, again, if I'm like the Phillies, I think the Phillies are not thinking this way, or really their fans. But it's like, I guess, yes, the start's been really good, and I think you're setting yourself up perfectly to make the postseason. I'm just saying, like, I guess from a standpoint of the Braves catching you in the division, like, they're playing, again, not great ball for their standards, and they're only a few back. And again, I feel like, for the Phillies, it does feel like they're playing a little bit above their skill, so, or at least their track record, I should say. So interested to see that. But like, I know a lot of the networks have kind of been like, they're doing their power rankings after the quarter of the season, and I've seen like some that have like the Braves like way down there, like some out of the top 5, and I'm like, dude, the Braves
no.
have been too good for the past a long time for that to be the case. Like, they're gonna turn it around, and yeah, I fully expect that. It's nice that the Phillies have started the way they will, because maybe that does actually mean that we'll have a competitive division race throughout the season. I will say that, which is going to make the baseball really fun in that division, especially when those two teams meet up. But yeah, man, it's been great for the Phillies, and again, hopefully for their sake they can keep it up. But don't count out those Braves.
What kind words for you to say about the Phillies?
I know. I'm always so nice to them too, and like their fans,
and their fans. I mean, just kind words. Like, you should give their eulogy if they ever all died in a fire.
Jesus Christ!
Remember, fans is short for fanatics, and that I don't think that sums up Philly more than fanatic.
Don't make me fanatic people. You again.
All right.
I wasn't the one talking last time.
Hey, you agreed with me, and that was enough for him. Let's move on to our final topic of the night. We're going to talk some Orioles here, the best team in the AL, I would say, at this point in time, and things have been looking good, John. Everything's clicking mostly, but man, does Craig Kimbrell suck this year.
He has had his struggles, and they are working through them. I think that having the Orioles, according to Bobby.
I'm getting distracted, John. Go.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, in terms of Craig Kimbrell, he's had his struggles. He's had, his issues. Looking at his numbers now, ERA is not where, definitely not where he wants to be. Definitely not where the Orioles want him to be. But, right now it's closure by committee. In terms of where they stand in terms of pitching, ERA, they're third. In terms of saves, they're third. Win totals for pitching, they're second. You got to, you got to factor all these things in. And when it comes to the Orioles, there's been a lot of injuries on that pitching staff. From Grayson Rodriguez, Tyler Wells, obviously John Means, Kyle Bradish starting on the IL to start the season. They have the Orioles been very, very good for all the adversity they've had to deal with on the pitching side in terms of overall record, in my opinion. And I think that their biggest issue in terms of everything is like hitting right now. They're slumping, but they'll come out of that, and that's a definite thing. They are going to come out of it. They'll be the team that they should be, and they're going to continue to be one of the best teams in baseball. Definitely, I am confident in saying that, both as an Orioles fan and as somebody who talks about baseball on the internet for all of you. So
Yes. I thought you were about to say for a living, and I was like, I don't know what money you're earning because I'm definitely not going.
no,
Um,
if I'm able to do this for a living, set.
look, I think Kimbrel hasn't been great, and I think that's really a big part for them, though. I mean, last year they had Felix Bautista back there, and he was a sure thing, and you have a
It's
lot
an
of
adjustment.
inconsistencies back there.
It's an
It is, but
adjustment.
like,
But it's
look,
not like the bullpen itself has been.
yeah.
It's not like the collective bullpen has been bad. It's not like the
I don't know. From the
collective
way you talk to me,
pitching
you hate
staff.
half of the guys you have in the bullpen.
No. I don't know what you're talking about. In
Let's see,
terms,
Bauman,
no. In terms of
Akins, Kimbrel,
in terms of
Perez.
everything
That's
while on
already
air,
4.
let's put it this way: while on air, in all seriousness though, the bullpen pitching rotation has been very good from all of the injuries they've had to deal with and all the adversity. I mean, you have Craig Kimbrel, who is currently struggling, and they're working through that, and I have total faith that they will work through it. Do I know if he'll be in the closer that the Hall of Fame closer that he will go in as? I don't know. I don't really think so. I think he's doing really well as just a relief pitcher in general. But it's definitely an adjustment from the reliever of the year
Yeah.
to anyone in general. So
But I mean, also with Kimbrel too, right? Like he's going to be 36, I think it is in 2 weeks. Yeah, 36 in 2 weeks. So it's like you're seeing this, you're seeing the start to the season you're seeing what he did last year in the playoffs for the Phillies. Although overall he was pretty good in the regular season for them. And it's just a little concerning. And then Will had brought something up about, hey, look how good Mason Miller is doing in Oakland, and then like I think a day later, a report came out that they're open to trading him, and it's like, this is an interesting possibility. I mean, what are your thoughts of that prospect of the Orioles potentially looking to add a guy like Mason Miller?
If there is a team in baseball that can afford trading a big package to the A's to get Miller and not destroy their future, it's the Orioles. And to have a potential back end of the bullpen after 2024, so 2025 and beyond, of Cano, Miller, and Bautista, that would easily be the strongest back end in baseball. And the Orioles would have an absolutely killer pitching staff all around.
I think it almost makes too much sense, right? Like because you have, and John, I'll let you kind of speak on this because you know more about their prospects than anybody, but they have a lot of guys that are position blocked right now in the minors, and it's like you have a surplus of positions. If this is a guy, Mason Miller, who, I mean, he is doing stuff this year that is absolutely unbelievable. His FIP, which is fielder independent pitching, is literally in the negatives, which I did not know was possible prior to the season. Like he could go out there with nobody in the field and still be okay. Essentially, is what that means because he's striking at so many people. So it's like for the Orioles, this guy's young. He's got promise. You have prospects you can trade because they're blocked from other players. Like to me, as Will said, it makes too much sense of you have a team that can sell a little bit of their future at positions they're already good at for a guy that they can be set for 10 years.
yeah, I mean, honestly, I would love that move. The question is, how much are the Athletics going to want? If I remember correctly, think it was either last year or the year before. It was right after we had drafted Jackson Holiday. that I think it was the White Sox we were in talks with, and they just kept asking for Jackson Holiday, and so, Jackson Holiday, and these two guys, and we didn't want to do that. So it really depends on what the numbers say and what the trade could be, in terms of what it could, what Oakland wants. But in terms of everything, you got to look at what the asking price is. You got to look at what you're getting. I would love to have Mason Miller. That arm is deadly. In all honesty, but yeah, in terms of setting up the pitching rotation, the bullpen, the staff in general for the next, I want to say probably five 5 years, 10 years. That could be really important and really big. But we'll have to see. We would. I'm curious as to what the asking price is because it's not going to be cheap and it's not going to be you know inexpensive.
But
It's
I
the same
think,
thing.
well, here's what I'll say from the athletic standpoint. Like, yes, Mason Miller has been great for you this year. He's been, um, well, I was gonna say putting butts in seats, but I don't think you can really say that. But
Well,
like,
hold on,
he's
hold on.
bringing hype
Did
to
you
the team.
see? Speaking of Mason Miller, did you see his quote? They asked him, "Why don't you get a special entrance?" And he says, "I don't think the
No,
lights can
yeah.
come back on."
Yeah, that's so good. But like, okay, from the athletic standpoint, it's good to have a guy like this who's electric and stuff like that. But if you're looking at the long-term prospects of the team, this guy is a reliever. And what is the value there overall when maybe you can get a guy, a couple position players that can round out your lineup for the future? So I think I wasn't surprised by them coming out and saying, "Hey, we're looking," he's not on the market per se, but we're open to offers, and I'm
I would
sure
say he
the
is on the
asking price.
market.
Yeah,
I
and
think
look, I think the
everybody's
asking
on the
price.
market.
I think the asking price is going to be high. It should be. He's right now. He's as his value couldn't be any higher right now, essentially. But I think for them, it just makes too much sense. Of like, hey, this guy's a reliever. Like I know he was starting for games for them last year, but it looks like he'll probably stay in that reliever role. And it's like, okay, that's a closer is great in baseball, but like a really good second baseman would be pretty cool too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like for them, it makes a lot of sense. Will, what are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely think the Orioles should go for Miller. I mean, they even if the A's, which I actually don't feel like they would do, ask for a Holiday, as long as you can give them enough of a return, odds are if there is a blockbuster trade done, it'll probably revolve around Kobe Mayo because he is position blocked the most on the Orioles, and I don't really see him fitting in unless something drastically happens in the future, injury wise or something. So if the Orioles probably compose a deal that involves maybe two of their top 10, maybe even top 5 overall prospects, one of them being Mayo, and then a combination of 2 to 4 other prospects, that's lesser. That is not saying John should have his Orioles give up half of their top 10 for this, but I do think the Orioles have what it takes to bring in Miller. And right now, with the uneven nature of Kimbrel's pitching throughout the season, having someone that can solidify their back end could be what they need to really get farther into the postseason this year.
And I'm looking at like their prospects and their lineup right now, and I do agree. I think Kobe Mayo is probably the centerpiece of that trade. If it goes down, because he's kind of blocked there. But it's also I mean, looking at all this, like I think Enrique Bradfield, he was just drafted, wasn't he, or was that the year
Yeah,
prior?
he
So
was just
like,
drafted.
I don't know if they're going to want to move on there, but I just think you have some options there. And again, probably starts with Kobe Mayo, but like, would they maybe move on to like a fringe guy in the MLB right now that like the A's might um, overpay for it in a way? Cause it's like, okay, this is a better than the guy we have right now. I just, again, I think it makes too much sense for the Orioles. And yeah, I mean, if you have a guy that in Kobe Mayo that is not going to make it, trade him for a guy that can make an impact. Because right now, I don't want to say their window is now. Obviously, they have an extremely young team, but you're going to have to start paying these players at some point, right? So,
That's not
you
for another
know,
5 years for
oh,
a
I
lot
know,
of these
but like
guys.
I'm saying, like at some point you're gonna want to like, okay, we're gonna have to start paying people, whatever. And I think like they want to take advantage of the years that they have. Like this, I do believe the Orioles right now are the best team in the AL, and I think they're gonna look at this as okay, this is an opportunity for us to, pick up a piece in Mason Miller now, who is going to be dominant now, will be dominant in the future, and we're gonna do as well as we can. I just think it's a good trade for them.
My issue with Mason Miller is the same issue I have with Paul Skenes, and honestly, we saw it happen with Felix Bautista. You throw over 100 miles per hour, you're asking for your UCL to explode. Honestly, like
Yeah.
Oh, it'll
that's my
happen.
opinion. Like that's where I'm at, and you have to take that into account when you're thinking about making these trades. And Mike Elias, honestly, I think he's the best GM there is in baseball. In what he's been able to do in terms of rebuilding, Brandon Hyde as the manager, I think is an amazing manager for what he was able to go through regarding this rebuild. You got to really. I know they're going to be looking at it and take those things into account, and we'll have to see. But it doesn't make the most sense, yeah. But do I think it's going to happen? Not really. I think that another team is going to be willing to sell the farm per
Yeah.
se to get him, whereas like the Orioles
What
are going to.
about them Phillies?
Well, look,
I
they
don't.
had
I don't think because all of your. I don't know how your farm system is, to be honest. But in terms of the most value, I think the
I've
most
toyed
value
around with
comes.
trades in my brain.
Well, I think the most
well,
value comes from your major league, and the thing we have to take in consideration with the Athletics, they're on a smaller window than even the Orioles with the guys they have right now in terms of when they make big splash trades like this for young guys. When they get called up, they know they're not going to get paid. They know they're going to get traded. They know they're going to be sent off for peanuts. So it's like, you know, the Athletics they have to take those things into account just because that's the way they're run. You know,
yeah. I mean, it's the A's. This is what we come to expect from them, and I think, again, to me, it just makes more sense for them to trade a guy in a position that is not as important and get some guys. But well, actually, I'm going to throw it to you because the Phillies have also kind of been like up there as a mock team that he could go to. I mean, what does a trade for the Phillies look like? I mean,
the
obviously he'd be a big piece.
the Braves would never overtake them. I will say that.
Oh wow,
I mean,
he's
the
calling
short
a
answer
shot.
is I don't think this would happen, but I mean, the way I look at it is this. The one person I think the Phillies would not trade whatsoever is Andrew Painter, who is still recovering from Tommy John surgery anyway, but he could potentially make his major league debut sometime next year. That being said, I know in the past they've said their prospects like Aiden Miller, was it Crawford?
Yeah,
Um, I forget the initials. And then Aiden Miller were kind of the off limits trade pieces. Right now, if the Phillies wanted to get Aiden Miller, I could see the package mainly revolving around Aiden Miller and Mick Abel. And that's because Abel, at least in my eyes, the way I see reports with him, he still isn't having the control the Phillies would want in their rotation. And right now, the Phillies are kind of in a they're kind of creating a tough situation for them, a good situation. But now that they've locked down Nola and Wheeler for the first next 3-4 years or whatever, having both of them, that is, their pitching staff is kind of covered through like 2026 or so because they have Ranger Suarez, I believe, through 2026, just because of arbitration. Talman Walker still has 2 more years, and Christopher Sanchez probably has 3 years at least of team control. So just from that, you have your current five locked up as is, but they want Painter to come to the majors. So if they were trying to find ways to get Painter and Abel to come into the majors, that's kind of going to be difficult without shifting some guys around unless injuries suddenly destroy someone's career in a year or so, which please God don't let that happen. But Abel is now turned into more of an, expendable piece for the right person. And Aiden Miller is someone I know the Phillies like a lot in the minor leagues. He's only in single A, I think, right now, and was drafted,
Yeah,
I think, last year.
yeah, he
So
was.
he's a third base, first baseman. Harper's locked up, and Bohm is taking huge strides every year and has seemed to have taken another one this year. So Miller's getting blocked position wise. That is really the starting point. That's all I can say for that. The Phillies still would have to give up a huge package. Dave Dombrowski is not shy about making giant blockbuster deals if he sees fit. Maybe if the Phillies feel like they need to throw another top guy in there because of the way their situation is, they would be trading away Crawford because their outfield is kind of covered right now with um, Marsh and Rojas mainly. Castellanos, I know they still have for 2 more years after this year, but he can slide into a DH role after a year or so when Schwarber becomes a free agent after 2025. But anyway, but in the Phillies case, though, it would pretty much deplete their farm system is the only thing. However, given the Phillies' recent postseason success, but
What
having gotten
now?
the World Series, I was gonna say, yeah, this is as much of a win now as you would expect, especially with Harper and Turner with big contracts been in their primes. JT Realmuto's nearing the end of his contract. You have your best years of Wheeler right now, maybe your best year probably ever for Ranger Suarez, and Aaron Nola's looking like ace Aaron Nola that you had back in like 2018 or 19 when he was like third in Cy Young voting. Like, this is as much win now as it seems to have ever been for the Phillies. So maybe it is time they pull the trigger and say, you know what, we'll give away a big chunk of the farm system because we have all these guys locked up and we want to get this core a ring.
And again, I think it has to be for the right guy, and Mason Miller might be that guy. But I think the Phillies, as much as they might be in love with Aiden Miller, it's like, okay, he's, as you said, kind of position blocked anyway. He's also only 19. So, like, if you want to have this win now mentality, he's not going to help you for a couple years down the line at least. And you know that Mason Miller is basically a sure thing at this point. You just never know with prospects. So I think probably you're right. I think a trade starts there or with Mick Abel or both if it was to happen. But I think, again, for the Phillies or really any of the top teams like that are looking to really shore up their back end, I think Mason Miller is a guy that is worth looking at to bring in because he's just been so good. And again, I tend to think guys that throw really, really hard, I know there's injury concern there, but the guys that throw really, really hard do tend to be successful more than guys that don't. So again, you have more of a sure thing there. But yeah, it could get very interesting, I think, for the A's because you finally have somebody there who's like, hey, bringing eyes to the A's or somebody to look at. And credit to the A's, they've actually been decent this year. But now you're like, 40 games into the year, it's like, oh, we should trade our pride and joy right now. Like it's a revolving door in Oakland.
I think this is going to be going on until at least the end of June.
Oh
Honestly,
yeah, I think.
I think this will be trade deadline buzz. I think the A's are going to wait out as long as possible to try to get the best deal. And if it doesn't happen in their mindset, hey, we still got the guy. We can do it again in the offseason. We can do it again next year. It's not like they have to do it now. So in other words, they're trying to see if teams are desperate enough to give them a big enough package.
until
But
he
I think
either gets hurt or has to get paid, it's what it comes down to.
I just don't know how his value could really get. I mean, it could get higher if he consistently is pitching like this, I guess. But like he's as good as he cannot be better than what he is right now. Like
As
that's
long
what I'm
as he
saying. Like,
doesn't get hurt, he will have high value.
but
That's
is that a concern for them, right? Because it's like, okay, if he goes out and like, oh, he does get hurt, and I just feel like for the A's, there's a little bit of a risk in keeping him just because you don't know what's going to happen. Where right now it feels like this is his ceiling in terms of what value you're going to get. Like I really do believe that. Like I don't think he could be
I
any
don't
better
think
than he is. So
if you're the A's,
I
I
mean,
don't
with the
think you
Tommy
worry about
John
that.
scare,
I don't
with the
think you worry
Tommy
about
John scare, you see them trying to beat that in a trade. However, Tommy John is not something you can predict. You can predict based on age and the type of player, on how hard they throw, who will likely get it. So if he hasn't had
Yeah.
it yet, then therefore there's that concern. But to say, is he going to have it tomorrow? Is he going to have it in 3 years? It's hard to really say on that. But I do see them potentially trying to beat that, since more and more headlines are all about more players go under the knife. Who's going to be next? Teams are now watching workload because they're concerned about Tommy John injuries to certain players. So, I mean,
Well, he is
I just
24.
think the A's are a team that are gonna. I don't think the A's are still going to be a team that feels pressured. If anything, it's because I don't think ownership knows what they're doing half the time. But
That's true.
I mean, that is a
you
factor,
get on the
yes.
right, they'll say sure, but
In terms
Yeah,
of
I mean,
in terms of
honestly,
his age being a factor, from what we saw, more Tommy John cases were for guys under like 25, I think.
like
26,
20,
Or
26
was it
and
26? Okay, well, he's
Yeah.
24, so he's at that. He's coming close to that benchmark of, okay, this might be where he's at, and which is great for him, for the A's, because he's
yeah, he'll
24 right
snap it.
now. But
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, you don't know, and it could change in his case. But in terms of the trend, that he at least has that going for him.
Yeah. I think there also is probably a cap on how much you're going to get from a reliever anyway in a trade, and I think to me that all culminates into, I think I would not be surprised if in like the next month or month and a half that he gets shipped out, because if he keeps doing what he's doing and the demand is high, because I think it's going to be high, they're going to feel like the package we're going to get now is as good as it's going to get, or close to as good as it's going to get, and we don't have to take the risk of an injury or him falling off or whatever. So again, I
Also,
think for him that makes sense.
I messed up. He's not 24; he's 25. But
I was gonna say I thought he was.
Yeah.
Not that
I
really
read
matters.
I read his age when he debuted.
Now-
That's
He's got the arm of a 24-year-old.
Now I also don't know too, like if he would ever be considered to go back into a starting role for a team. That's a whole other conversation. But I just think that there is a lot of value in this guy right now for what he could be or is now, and he'd make a team very happy. Throwing
I think when you
115.
when you have this success in the role that you do, that's typically the slot you're in. You don't typically see guys go from uh, the bullpen to being a starter when they're having this much success.
Yeah.
Um, Especially as guys age. I mean, you see it the other way around, where older guys will become bullpen arms. You do see that, but you very seldom see a bullpen arm at this age go into a starting role. So,
Yeah.
Jordan Hicks, Ronaldo Lopez, Seth Lugo,
again, seldom.
Michael King, AJ Puck.
Okay, AJ Puck is horrible.
I could probably
He
name
doesn't
more.
count.
I didn't
AJ
say
Puck
they were
is horrible.
successful. I'm just rattling off examples.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Again, I'm gonna say success.
yeah.
All right, Ronaldo Lopez, Seth Lugo.
We could do this all day, but we're
How
gonna
much time
end
do we
it
have?
there. I mean, do we want to do the jerseys? I mean,
Yes, please.
John's huge on these jerseys. All right,
Speed round. Just speed
All right.
round.
we
Give your
have
cheer.
more. Yeah, I was gonna say we have more jerseys on the horizon for City Connect. I'm gonna tell you right now. Holy mother of God, what are we doing for these City Connect jerseys? I feel like every time there's like a little bit of controversy with them. The Guardians jerseys I don't think are bad, but they are just plain as hell. I don't know which one you're going to start with, Bobby, but Detroit's I think was released the earliest, and
Skid mark. That's what I have to
those
say.
are ass, dude. What are we
Skid
doing?
mark.
It literally looks like the font on like the hat and stuff and the jersey, like it looks like you made this in like, you know, it looks like a Microsoft Word font right there to me. I don't know, it's just horrible.
I can't say anything on that one, but just because of Anyway, the skid mark going down their front and back, what gets me every
Yeah.
time. Like I look at this, I'm like, oh, that's
They're
not
literally
bad
getting
jersey.
run over.
Okay. yeah, that's not a bad jersey. I don't mind it. And then you have skid mark in the front, skid mark in the back, and it's never mind.
It's just so bland, dude. It's like I like that color blue, like that main royal blue, but it's just like it's so bland, man. There's nothing to this. And again, I hate the font on these jerseys. It almost like feels like they didn't try on that sense.
They remind me
I'm
of
not a
Dale
fan.
Earnhardt Jr.'s number that he
Just
had on
oh
his.
yeah, like that font. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that
I
when you look at the numbers, that's what it reminds me of. Especially, I forget who's number 8, but looking at his jersey in the released photos, that's exactly what I thought of.
yeah, not good.
Boy,
Let's move
John
on
loves the
to
number 8 when it comes to these jerseys.
he absolutely
Every
loves it.
week, it's all about that looks like a number 8. That looks like 8 from NASCAR. That's that.
This
He
is
knows
true.
one number.
Anyway,
I don't want to hear from you, Mister. I can't see the numbers.
you can't see the numbers. You can't. Have you watched any of the games they've worn those jerseys? You don't see anything. You literally just see the gray. That's all you see.
I do like
Your
those
eye
jerseys
doctor
more,
must
though.
love you.
I do like their jerseys more though, seeing them on screen. Take that, as you will. But yeah, the Guardian jerseys I think are good. Like I think it's okay, but again, it's just kind of like a little bit simple, a little bit too bland. Like you have like all these jerseys out there that are crazy exotic and this and that, and it's
I'm
like
just tired of them looking like softball jerseys.
I like the Guardian. Like again, I think the Guardian jersey, like if that was their main jersey, I'd probably hate it less. But it's just like it's just so bland with all these other jerseys that are getting released. Like I don't love it, but I do
I
like the
mean,
lettering on the CLE. I think that's kind of cool. Like the courts look there, but yeah,
I like I like the hat. I will say that, and I do like the stripes going down the sleeve and the pants. I do like that, like because I think of the movie Major League when I see that.
I
But
know.
You're
That's
just
all I
happy
see
there's
with
white pants on a City Connect jersey. That's why you're
okay,
happy.
I'm sorry. The monochrome look, the monotone look doesn't do anything for me. But okay. Anyway, in terms of I don't like the CLE. I think it's very boring, and
Mm.
yeah.
See, I kind of like that. I don't
My
know.
only
Like
real
it
concern,
pops.
and this is just purely, I think, of how, given the jersey situation this year, like the Phillies beige Sunday day alternate uniforms have messed with my eyes. For this year, off-white looking colors just look like really dirty white sheets to me that have turned yellow over time. And I know the font on their shirt is supposed to be more sandstone, I think was the description.
Yeah.
Is that what
Which
that
you
is?
can't really tell here. Here it looks more white. I don't think this does justice to it. But when I saw a different picture of it and it's more of the sandstone to me, I'm like, nah, this just feels like it's
No,
too
that's
dirty. And
white.
that might not be an issue in later years. It might be because I think the Phillies' explanation was that for some reason the way the jerseys were made this year to deal with the new adjustments they made be sweat friendly or whatever the term is, which clearly didn't work. It made it look more yellow and
Sweat friendly.
right.
Oh my god.
So bad, man. I John, you're right though. I look at these jerseys and I think of Major League. And I know it was like that team or whatever, but just this
I'm
really
willing to
lays
bet
into
that
it.
that really was the point because honestly, that was the only Cleveland team since 1948 to win anything in terms of
Yeah.
baseball. So,
I don't know.
you
I
know,
mean, again, I don't think the jersey's bad, and honestly, if you compare it to other jerseys, it's probably up there. It's so boring, and again, as a main jersey, I'd probably love it, but
are we going to talk about
um,
the Dodgers since it was just a leak?
yeah, the Dodgers their first City Connect jerseys were so bad that they felt the need to make a new one.
They weren't just bad. They literally were like, we're going with our blue alternate jerseys and we're adding Los to the front. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
We're
And now
the Dodgers.
now and now instead of having like blue pajamas,
Pop-Tart.
It looks like a Pop Tart. Yeah.
now that the blue jerseys are gone, the blue pajamas and whatever you want to call them, now they've just taken paint and splattered it from a distance on the jersey.
They brought in Jackson.
It looks like funfetti.
Yeah, icing.
Word to Cold Stone.
Yeah,
I want a piece of cake. Yeah, what is it? What in the Cold Stone creamy shit is this? Is what I saw online. Is like the
Yo, Tyler, it makes me think of the ice cream joint that was near us, Red Eagle.
yeah. Dude, I'm telling you, it literally looks like they took like paint or ice cream and went like across this jersey was on home plate and they were at the pitcher's mound and they were flinging little specks at this jersey, and this is what it came up with.
Here's my question. Is Los Angeles
spackling.
or the Dodgers known for ice cream or something that I don't know about?
Well,
because
definitely not. But this is another one of those topics you brought up of like we have all these teams that are like, oh, this jersey is the Mets we look like cement because we're
the concrete
New
jungle.
York, the concrete jungle, this and that, and then you have some teams. It's like what is the relation here? What does your jersey mean to your city? Because I am having a hard time picturing it. I'll be honest with you.
And this is going to be
love the explanation on this.
I'm sure this is going to be clipped, but that logo, that D right there, I like it. I like it. On the sleeve right there.
It's okay.
It's a curly D.
Whatever. It's whatever. There's like
a big curly D.
It's a what?
I swear there's a European soccer team that has that exact font for a D on their logo. So it is what it is. But honestly, I have nothing more to say about those jerseys. They are, I swear, they probably took 5 minutes on those jerseys, in my opinion. And I think that was all the jerseys we had. I don't think there was any more leaks. Bring it together, there, Travers. Here's Curly Dick or whatever. Curly D, sorry.
I said Curly D. I hear my ear.
D.
It's a what?
Curly D, and he's off the rails. But that is going to be all for episode 15 of the Big League Breakdowns podcast. Thank you, as always, for being here. You can check us out on Twitter at BL_breakdowns and on everything else at Big League Breakdowns. We will be continuing to post on there and give you guys the, clips of Curly D's and all that stuff. So be sure to check that all out. But until next time, we'll see you later.